Skyrim is a game I've played for years, but there's one big part of the world I've almost completely ignored. The water. Not because it's necessarily dangerous or difficult to explore, but because I've never really felt a reason to do so. I decided to change just that and went headfirst into the nearest lake here right outside of Helgen. And here I found the things you've come to expect from Skyrim. I found ruins, shipwrecks, small little things to look at and explore. But as I got further and further out along its rivers towards the ocean, this is where things started to drastically change. The hidden little things from the developers stopped. The fish disappeared. Any form of life, interaction, gone. An eerie, strange, and almost horrifying feeling enveloped me. The feeling actually has a name. Kenopsia. If you don't know exactly what that means, don't worry, we'll learn a lot more about that when we reach the deep, dark abyss of Skyrim's ocean. However, before we do reach the ocean, I'd like to take you along the journey of exploring the unexplored water of Skyrim.
Wait. You there. Step forward. Who are you?
The journey starts by creating the only kind of character that makes sense for a life in water, a Mark Zuckerbergian, aka an Argonian, as they're the only race in Skyrim blessed with eternal water breathing. After blasting through Helgen, we made it to this big lake. I've seen this lake just about 1,000,000 times at this point, but I never knew it had a name. It's actually called Lake Illinalta. So there you go, from me to you, a nugget of wisdom. This lake here is actually rather calm, cozy, and teeming with fish, life, and a lot of things to explore. The first thing I came across was this flooded Draugr ruin. It's kind of crazy to think that this was probably built thousands of years ago, but now it's just flooded with water. Some funny observations here though is that although it's been down here for so long, there's still embalming tools and weapons on display on an altar here. There could also be an entrance to some deeper parts of the ruins right here, but if there is, it's most certainly walled off behind all of the debris right here behind me. Another cool little thing in Lake Illinalta is this ravine, or gully, that I found. Almost like a small version of a Minecraft ravine. I really like this place because you can see the fish actually living and swimming around here, almost like a small ecosystem on its own. It makes the world feel real, alive, lived in. It's almost as if Bethesda saw this lake as like a big fish tank. You know how people put rocks and ships and what have you inside of it to make it feel real, believable, and cozy for the fish. Well, in this case, I'm the fish, and Skyrim is my fish tank. And Todd Howard is feeding me by placing little objects around for me to explore while donning his infamous leather jacket. But if you have sharp eyes, you might actually spot something in the distance behind this little ravine right here. Because further into the lake, there's this big shipwreck right here. Inside of it, you find crates, barrels, skeletal remains, and chests with loot. All the things you'd really come to expect from a game like Skyrim. However, when really thinking about it, I do wonder what a ship was actually doing here in the first place. It is a lake with only 2 connections, both of which are way too small for a ship of this size to even go through in the first place. The ship is also donned with shields all around it, and around the skeletal remains are weapons. So it does kinda look like they went out in a battle somehow. It does seem very strange to me to have one ship sailing around this lake, let alone 2 ships duking it out, battling over whatever they were transporting. But alas, this pleases my little fish brain in Todd Howard's wonderful fish tank. It's also clearly been here a while since it's been partly covered and sunken into the ground. But it's also not been here long enough to completely erode and turn into a scattered wreck. But once again, this does help make the place feel alive, lived in, and like a real fantasy world. Despite the fact that some of this probably doesn't make too much sense if you really sit down and think about it. And trust me, I went down the rabbit hole of trying to figure out how old this lake was exactly, how it was formed, why is this ship even here, how long has it been here? It can't be that old because of the Draugr ruins, and by that old, I do mean a couple of thousand of years, but like in the grand scheme of things here. But I'll let you finish that rabbit hole yourself if you want to. I spend too long getting nowhere with that. One more little thing I found is this sunken rowboat with a chest on it. I'd like to imagine that it's some thieves trying to get away at night, but the chest being way too heavy to keep the boat afloat, and thus sinking to the bottom and leaving them there empty-handed, like some classic schoolbook lesson on greed. There's also an angry slaughterfish nearby. Maybe one of the thieves was reincarnated and is now stuck here for eternity defending its prized possession. Also, if you're wondering why my water looks so clean and visible, it's it's not. It actually looks like this. But for the sake of you guys being able to see anything, I've done a little movie magic. Close to the chest, there's this other little piece of rock. And I know, it's just a rock, cough, but listen here. It's a pretty damn cool rock, okay? I've now spent way too many hours in the waters of Skyrim, and there really isn't a rock quite like this one. I think it sort of resembles the same formation used for mining nodes in the game, but this one is clean and underwater. And honestly, there's not a whole lot more to it than that. I feel like it's kind of like when you find a cool steak in the forest, you show it to your girlfriend and she shrugs, but then some random dude walks by and is like, oh, cool steak, dude, and you feel so internally validated. So I hope you like my rock. Please. Of course, there's also the big fort that's crumbled into the sea. This is kind of the main attractions of the entirety of Lake Illinalta. But because of that, this doesn't really interest me as much. You're kind of supposed to see this. This is too interesting. I prefer the cool little rocks in my Bethesda-themed fish tank. However, there is one little detail about this fort that does spark my interest a bit. And it's this little bridge right here. And this bridge makes 0 sense. Someone looked at this pile of rubble and decided it needed a fancy walkway. This is most certainly built post-crumbling, which means some carpenter actually came along and saw an opportunity here. It's clearly here so that you can easily access the entry point, the collapsed fort. But I mean, you could have just gone through the water. You could have skipped the rocks. You could have put down a flat piece of wood for a quick access. But no. Whoever built this decided to go the extra mile and build a whole damn bridge for this obscure location. But to his defense, there is a little lantern here, which means there's certainly someone making use of his engineering. Lake Illinalta is full of live fish, slaughterfish, things to find and stumble upon if you actually go swimming in it. It's clear that the developers put care into this area, most likely due to it being the closest lake to the starting position of Helgen, meaning that it's more likely to be explored than any other area of the game. Because when we turn our eyes to the other lake in Skyrim, the one right here outside of Riften, it starts to tell a slightly different story. And we start to slowly get a glimpse into why I think the ocean of Skyrim is, unintentionally or not, extremely eerie, weird, and ominous. We all know Riften to be the home of the beloved Thieves Guild, the follower Mjol, and the oddly attractive, crazy chemist girl from the Blackbriar family that always talks about murdering people with her potions.
It's exhilarating to observe the effects of my potions on the body. Watching the heart stop, the eyes go blind.
No? Just me? Anyway, but what do you actually know about this lake? I knew it had a harbor, which makes so little sense, is actually driving me mad. Where do the ships go? It has one exit route, which is blocked by a bridge that makes it impassable by anything besides maybe a rowboat at best. Are we really building an entire harbor and claiming to be an import-export city only to sail maybe a minute to the nearest island that produces honey? That's it? The fish tank scenario is really starting to show now, but although it makes no sense, I'm for one very happy to be a gullible fish in Todd's big tank. Anyway, besides the harbor, I also knew about the islands out in the middle of it, because the Thieves Guild sends me out to burn not 2, definitely not 4, but 3 damn beehives and steal some shit from here. Besides that, I've never in my life been out here, dude. But what I didn't know is that this lake also has a name, and it's actually called Lake Honrich. Honrich? Hornrich? Is it because it's so rich on honey? I don't know, but it is its name in either case. However, down inside of Lake Honrich, it's kinda empty. Surprisingly so. Right around the harbor, we do have some scattered crates and barrels laying around, which does help a little bit with some world building. Besides the ship absolutely being able to go nowhere with any of these crates, it does help sell the illusion that they could, with some of the wares being dropped into the bottom of the lake over time. Unfortunately though, there's no like chest or lootable crates here. They're all just for show. And that's about it, folks. That's all there is to this lake, really. Sure, there's some fish swimming around and some places are scattered with seaweed, but that's really the bare minimum of a lake, especially in Skyrim. The harbor area of the lake doesn't even have any seaweed at all. It's just all creepy bare and lifeless. And listen, I'm not trying to make the argument that Skyrim is somehow a bad game because the developers didn't put something here for me to find. I know damn well that 99% of the people playing the game will never set foot down here and actually take a look around the lake. But I also know how creative and careful Bethesda is when it comes to placing secrets, skeletons, and untold stories through world building. Like with these crates at the harbor, which makes it looks like an actual import-export city. That I am actually kind of surprised that there isn't anything here. And I guess that a small part of me did kind of expect there to at least be something here. Even if you actually enter Riften and go swimming in the city's part of the lake. Nothing. There's not even a single fish to be found, just an eerie emptiness. However, if we do allow ourselves to go slightly above the surface of the water, it does have this sewer grate right here, which I do think is pretty neat. And right beside it, it has this little rowboat. But the funny thing to me about this boat right here is that it's just sort of here. It's too far from the dock to be boarded from it. So my current headcanon is that it's a Thieves Guild getaway boat. But when they pull some elaborate heist, they run out and jump into the boat and row away like a pair of cartoon characters. Let's just cross our fingers and hope it doesn't end up like the boat in Lake Illinalta. So I started wondering, if a major city's harbor is this empty, what about the rivers? Are they as lifeless, hollow, and boring as this lake? Well, you see, the rivers of Skyrim are just about everywhere on the map. But there are actually a few secrets, a couple of fun little things that I did find along my journey of traveling up and down all of the intricate network of sprawling rivers on the way to the main event, the ocean itself. And where the lake sort of had this fish tank feeling, the rivers are quite different. Probably 80% of the rivers are just completely dead and empty. Sure, some stray fish spawn there sometimes, or a mud crab sits at the bay waiting to nip at the foot of a dragonborn. But if you actually stick your head inside the water, there's rarely anything to be found. Long stretches of rivers are just completely barren. It kind of feels like the developers decided to give life to certain areas, but then left other areas in the backlog and never really got around to filling them up with things to look at and explore. But alas, let me show you some of the cool little things that Bethesda did get to put in here for me and you. The first one being this stranded little rowboat. It's quite clearly the byproduct of some sort of heist gone wrong. I can't find any clues as to what happened to the people in the boat, but for some reason they chose to leave behind all of their spoils. And there's quite a lot of them. There's a satchel, a small lockbox, and quite a big pile of valuable gems just laying here. But more importantly than that, we have a gravity-defying wine bottle. But even though there's not really any context to who the boat bandits here are, I still think this is a fun, cool little world-building piece. None of these things have to be here, and yet Bethesda goes out of their way to do what they do best. Most of the time. At least, because right afterwards we are led to a barren wasteland of a river. There's genuinely not any sort of pattern to any of this that I could find, at least. Sometimes there's just long stretches of barren riverside. No vegetation, no rocks, nothing. Just a barren, empty fish tank. And then other times, it's the Bethesda experience we've come to love and expect. On the completely other side of the world, we have this little sewer exit right here under a bridge. It's connected to the abandoned prison right behind it, used for an escape attempt. However, what I don't really understand is, why are all of these dudes just dead here? Did they all die of exhaustion all at the same time right after escaping? Maybe killed off by the law and left to rot? I'm genuinely confused as to how all three of them seemingly just died here after escaping the prison. If you actually enter the prison, inside of it you can find this note right here. The note gives the orders to leave any prisoners inside the prison behind, while the guards flee the prison in order to evacuate a very bad incoming storm. Exploring the prison itself shows that there's now ghosts inhabiting the area, but more importantly, it shows a hole in the wall in one of the prison cells, showing that a prison escape was most certainly going on in the background of all of these events unfolding. The hole in the wall leads leads to the sewer exit we found, with a trail of skeletal remains scattered along it like breadcrumbs. However, none of this explains why those 3 prisoners who actually did manage to escape are now all dead right outside the gate. There is an Imperial sword among the 3 dead people, so maybe the guard was right on their tail and they had a last stand right outside of the sewer gate? It's not really clear, so I guess we'll never know, but it is a neat little find nonetheless. When exploring further along this river, you eventually reach an endpoint with a little inn right next to it. And what makes this inn so special is that it has its own little pond or lake next to it. But furthermore, what makes it worth for me to talk about and mention here is that it has a bridge, and quite a large one too. This is a fairly small lake or pond. I'm not really sure what it really classifies as. But this bridge is extremely tall and far from the water surface, which kind of leads me to believe that maybe this is an over-engineered diving bridge, but the water is just barely deep enough to cover you in the middle of it, let alone near the edge of the pond where the bridge is. It is also freezing out here. There is snow all around it, but I guess some people are masochistic enough to enjoy a nice ice bath, and I mean, who am I to judge? It could also be a bridge for fishing, but there is no fishing equipment here, and I'm not sure this little lake pond thing supports an ecosystem big enough for continuous fishing anyway. So the exact purpose of this abnormally large bridge remains a mystery to me. I've now traveled up and down every single river in Skyrim at this point, and as you can see, there's honestly not a whole lot going on in them, but I did save my favorite find for last. I have no explanation as to why this is here, of all places, or any context clues to draw from. I just randomly stumbled across this, and I guarantee you that I'd have never found this in my lifetime if it wasn't because of this video. Right beneath this waterfall right here is a chest. That's it, really. But this is exactly the type of thing I'd expect from Bethesda. Maybe even a cave hidden behind a waterfall or something exciting like that. However, from my discoveries throughout my travels, this isn't the norm. This is the one-off exception. It's not like there's any special loot in here either, but that's not really the point for me. It's more so the reward of finding something odd, weird, and fun. Encouraging the player's curiosity like this is something I'll forever stand on business for. But the silence of the rivers was merely a rehearsal for the absolute nothingness waiting at the edge of Skyrim's world, the ocean. But before we actually dive into the scary ocean of Skyrim, I want to circle back to the word I mentioned at the start of the video. Kenopsia. I hope I say it right. Kenopsia? Kenopsia? I actually don't know. Fuck.
Kenopsia.
Kenopsia defines and explains the feeling you get when something that's usually bustling with life is all of a sudden empty, abandoned, and eerily quiet. Like if you've ever dreamt about showing up to your school on a weekend where it's all empty and abandoned, and for some reason I was also naked too. Is that a shared phenomenon, or is that just me? Or if you imagine going to a carnival that's still turned on, but there's no guests, no children's laughter. Just the happy carnival music suddenly turned creepy from the lack of joy filling the surroundings. I think one of the most famous and recent examples of this phenomenon is the back rooms. But my favorite use of this doesn't actually come from anything horror related, but rather from Minecraft. Minecraft is a game where, unless you're playing with friends, you're always alone. This massive world with only you in it to explore. In recent years, Microsoft have done a good job of making it feel much more alive with their updates, but back in the day, it was just you, a world, and your imagination. And it was actually such a big thing that the urban legend of Herobrine spawned from this. Because the idea, the feeling of being so awfully alone in this vast, empty world was just too creepy, too terrifying. There had to be something, someone lurking and looking at you from a distance. And this is the exact feeling I get in the vast, dark, empty abyss that is Skyrim's ocean. This is even further amplified by turning the brightness up in the water. I think the reason Bethesda made the water so dark and muddy is to hide the fact that there really isn't anything down here at all. But once you turn the knob a bit and you actually get to see the surroundings, there's just nothing. On the surface where the player is supposed to travel, there's horkers, wolves, caves, ice wraiths, etc, etc. But down here is just you and your noggin. I really didn't go into this experiment with the idea or goal to find something scary, but I couldn't help but feel so uncomfortable when swimming around the ocean, trying to find anything cool, some sort of resemblance of life, something, anything to show off for you guys. I actually do think that the addition of some underwater monsters, sharks, what have you, would make it feel a lot less creepy to me personally. It should probably also be noted that I have a deep-rooted fear of the ocean in real life. So scared that my voice just cracked as well, like going through puberty again. I genuinely don't remember the last time I actually ever went swimming. I absolutely dread the experience. Now, there are actually a couple of things to be found in the ocean, but most of it is put near landmarks on the land. One thing I found pretty cool in particular is outside of Castle Volkihar from the Dawnguard DLC. I probably butchered that name of the castle awfully, but I don't... Volkihar, who knows? Behind the castle, there's this old harbor with some shipwrecks in it. But if you actually dive into the ocean and go deep, there's a secret wreck down there, and it actually have a hidden chest inside of it as well. But what makes this so cool to me is kind of the same thing that I found cool about the chest we found behind the waterfall earlier in the river. You have absolutely no reason to go here. There is nothing guiding you down here at all. Actually, let me show you. If you're just swimming in the water normally with no extra vision, you'd never even know this wreck exists in the first place, unless you dive really close to it by chance. Which means someone at Bethesda just put it here because they felt like it. And that to me is so cool. I really wish the ocean of Skyrim had more of this type of stuff in it. And I'll be clear with you, the ocean of Skyrim is extremely vast and deep, so I might have missed a thing here or there, but if you do know of anything I've missed, let me know down in the comments. Going for a deep dive into the ocean of Skyrim actually made me think of another game, which probably won't come as a big surprise for you, Subnautica. I actually think that Subnautica is really similar to Skyrim in so many ways, while also being the exact opposite. If you haven't played the game, the premise is that you're stranded on an alien world filled with 99% water, and just like Skyrim, the world is filled with things to constantly keep you entertained, busy, and craving to explore the next corner. The core difference is that most of the game takes place down in the ocean, underwater. And it's also, no joke, the scariest game I've ever played. And I've played most of the classics like Outlast, Five Nights at Freddy's, Resident Evil, Alien Isolation, Poppy's Playtime even. But what makes the ocean of Subnautica so horrifying is the exact opposite to Skyrim. In Subnautica, you know that there's things in the water.
Detecting multiple Leviathan class life forms in the region. Are you certain whatever you're doing is worth it?
Sea monsters lurking in the deep dark abyss. There is nothing to keep you safe. Skyrim lacks that in every single way. It has nothing in its ocean. And yet, it's scary in a totally different way because, well, Kenopsia. This becomes even more prevalent when going to the edge of the ocean, just peering into an empty, unfinished world. I know that Bethesda never intended for anyone to realistically go swimming and search every crevice of the ocean for any signs of life or weird things to note down. I don't think they predicted that an entire army of white men with green screens would go around and look at anything in video games, but I guess that's what 15 years of no new games and 67 different re-releases does to a man, so Bethesda, take notes. But at the same time, the Argonians are available to the player with the ability to breathe underwater, which kind of leads me to believe that there must be a reason for that, right? I did find one last little thing, and I'm unsure if you'd classify this as part of the river or part of the ocean, as it's located right where the River of Solitude becomes one with the vast ocean. But it's this boat right here turned upside down. If you swim down, you will find some random lootables, about 1 million slaughterfish, and more importantly, 2 named skeletons, Skegger and Advard. A stone's throw away is this little camp right here, and in this camp you'll find a fisherman's journal. In it you'll find out that Advard was hesitant to go fishing out here, considering that Skegger was hellbent on getting drunk while fishing, which I forgot to mention, you do find a ton of tankards around the skeletal remains as well, implying that they were drunk out of their mind when shipwrecking here. So remember, everyone, don't drink, sail, and fish at the same time. So if I'm to be a fish in Todd's cool fish tank, I prefer to stay in the cozy lake of Illinalta compared to the vast empty abyss of Skyrim's ocean. At least here it's teeming with life, fish, and the occasional disruptive visit of an explorer. Oh, and I almost forgot, I did find something a bit funny in the ocean, and it's this floating fish egg right here. Out of all the exploration in the water, this is the only bug I actually stumbled upon, which is quite surprising considering it's a Bethesda game. I want to give a massive thanks to my first couple of channel members right here. It genuinely means the world to me. Shout out to you guys. Consider subscribing, liking the video, and all that YouTuber jazz. I'm Koff. It was a pleasure, and thank you for watching. Boop! Also, if my voice sounds weird throughout this video, I'm sick as hell right now. I haven't been able to record for like a week and a half, which is also why it's been so long since my last upload. But I've been really sick, and my voice is just now barely being able to do this. So I hope it's not too disruptive. But yeah, anyway. Thank you for watching. Boop.